I was listing cards this morning, and I caught myself kind of obsessing over something that probably every card seller has thought about at some point. And that is, does image quality actually matter on low-end cards? Now, I'm talking about sub $10 cards. $1.99, $4.99, $6.99, anything under $10. The cards where the buyer might be filling a set, or grabbing a favorite player, or adding one more card to trigger a coupon. And here I am, still caring about whether the card is square in the image, whether there's the right amount of border, whether the chrome pops, or whether the refractor finish actually shows, and whether the image gives the buyer a true representation of the card. I won't even scan chrome cards or refractors most of the time because I don't think the scanner represents them properly. It flattens them, kills the finish, and it makes the card look worse than it actually is. Last year, I even invested a good amount of money into a Haystack One Bluetooth photo box with vacuum suction to hold the card in place and interchangeable background colors to reduce retakes and adjustments I was experiencing. And before that, I even built my own custom light box, the Goat Pen, because I wanted one and done imaging. Then I look around the hobby. I see plenty of sellers doing the opposite. I see crooked images, cut off cards, chrome cards run through scanners, flat looking refractors, and images that are clearly misaligned, and they still post them. And the argument from that side is pretty simple. My buyers still know what they're getting. If it's a 93 Fleer Barry Sanders, the buyer knows what a 93 Fleer Barry Sanders looks like. So the question for today is, are we wasting time getting sub $10 card images just right? Or does better imaging tell buyers that we care about quality? Welcome to my so-called card life, the podcast where we talk about what actually happens when you try to run a real card business, the decisions, adjustments, and lessons that don't show up in highlight reels. This episode is really about more than photos. It's about one of the biggest tensions in low-end card selling. Where does attention to detail create value, and where does it become disguised inefficiency? And that's the line we're walking every day. Because in low-end cards, the profit is not usually made on one card. It's made through process. It's made through repetition. And it's made through listing volume, inventory control, shipping efficiency, pricing discipline, and buyer trust. So if I'm spending too much time making a $4.99 card look like a $99 card, that's a real argument that I'm hurting the business. But if I go too far the other direction and let sloppy images represent my store, that also sends a message. And the message may be, this seller moves fast, but maybe they don't care that much. That's the balance. For JC3 Cards and Collectibles, image quality has always been part of the presentation standard. I want the buyer to feel like the card was handled properly. And I want the listing to look clean. I want the image to match the condition and the finish of the card. But I'm also not blind to the operational reality. If I'm selling thousands of low-end singles, I can't treat every card like a museum piece. And I can't let imaging become the bottleneck that slows down listing velocity. So today, we're going to break this down into a few questions. Does image quality sell low-end cards? Does bad image quality hurt buyer trust? Where's perfection unnecessary? And which cards deserve better photos? When should you retake an image? And what should the actual production standard be? The goal's not to come out of this with a generic answer like images matter or images don't matter. The goal is to define a practical standard, make every card look trustworthy, and make special cards look special. Before we get deeper into the topic today, a quick reminder. If you're buying cards, check out JC3 Cards and Collectibles on eBay, Collects, and whatnot. We carry a wide mix of sports and non-sports cards, including baseball, football, basketball, wrestling, Star Wars, racing, and plenty of low-end singles for collectors building teams, players, sets, and collections. And don't forget about our Lucky 7 promotion on eBay. Buy 7 eligible cards and get 40% off. That promotion is built for the way a lot of us actually collect. Maybe you're grabbing a few favorite players, maybe you're filling out a team lot, or maybe you're adding cards to make shipping feel more worthwhile. Either way, Lucky 7 gives you a reason to build a better order instead of buying one card at a time. You can find us again at eBay, Collects, and whatnot at JC3 Cards and Collectibles. Now, let's get back into the production question this week. Are clean images a competitive advantage, or are we just burning time? So let's start with the case for better images. Card listing image is not just a picture. It's part of the buyer's risk assessment. The buyer is asking a few things, even if they don't consciously think of it this way. Is this the right card? Is this the actual card? Can I see the condition? Does this seller seem careful? Does this listing look trustworthy? Am I going to have a problem if I buy this? And that matters, especially on eBay, where buyers are scrolling through multiple copies of the same card. There are 10 copies of a card, and one listing has a clean, centered, well-lit image, while another has a crooked, dark, blurry image. The clean listing probably feels safer. It may not always command a premium, may not always convert faster, but it reduces friction. And in low-end cards, friction matters because a buyer might not message you to ask about a $4.99 card. They might not ask for more pictures, and they might not take the time to clarify. They might just move on. So a bad image may not always create a complaint. It may simply create no sale. And that's the hidden cost. We can't always measure the buyer who skipped the listing. Clean images also reinforce the overall store brand. If a buyer buys one card from you and everything looks organized, professional, and accurate, they're more likely to trust you when they see your listings again. And for a store with a lot of low-end inventory, repeat buyer trust is a big deal. You're not just selling one card. You're trying to become a seller the buyer is comfortable buying from repeatedly. That's the case for better images. That image is a trust signal. Now, let's argue the other side. There is absolutely such a thing as overproducing a low end listing. If you are spending multiple minutes trying to perfect the image of a $1.99 card, the math probably doesn't work. That's the part we need to be honest about. A buyer doesn't need a glamour shot of every base card. If it's a common card of a known design or a basic set filler, the buyer is usually shopping based on the title, player, team, condition range, price, shipping, and seller feedback. They're not necessarily choosing the listing because the lighting angle was perfect. And this is where some sellers have some merit in their argument. The buyer knows what the card is. If someone is buying a 93 Fleer Barry Sanders, they probably don't need a perfect studio image to understand the card. They know the design and they know the player. They're likely buying the item because it fits their collection. So if the image is clear, complete, and accurate, that might simply be enough. And this is where perfectionism can become a trap. You can tell yourself you're protecting quality, but what you may really be doing is slowing production. Low-end card selling is a volume business. If you spend an extra 30 seconds per card across 1,000 cards, that's adding up to a lot of extra time. If that extra time doesn't meaningfully improve sell-through, price, or buyer satisfaction, then it's not quality control. It's wasted labor. Now, that doesn't mean sloppy is fine. It means we need to separate quality from perfection. This is the key distinction. Image quality matters. Image perfection usually does not. And image quality means the card is clear, it's fully visible, it's not blurry, the title matches the card, the condition is not being hidden, and the buyer can tell what they are buying. What image perfection means is the border is perfectly even, the card is perfectly square, the background's ideal, and the chrome shine is maximized. It's got that perfect angle, and the crop is flawless. For low-end cards, buyers just need the first category. They usually do not need the second. That's where I think a lot of sellers, sometimes myself included, can get caught up. We start with a really good intention. I want the listing to look professional. But then we drift into this image could be slightly better. And that's the danger in the production work. Because slightly better can become endless. The real operational question should not be could this image be better? The question should be, is this image good enough to create buyer trust and avoid problems? And that's a very different standard. A useful reminder from this episode to take away is the image does not need to win the sale. It needs to not lose the sale. For low-end cards, that's probably the right standard the majority of the time. The mistake here is treating every sub $10 card the same way. A $1.99 base card and a $4.99 refractor are not the same from an imaging standpoint. The value may be similar, but the reason someone wants the card might be different. So I think low-end inventory needs to be split into imaging tiers. First, you have commodity cards. These are the basic base cards, junk wax stars, set fillers, common inserts, and cards where the buyer mostly knows what they're getting. For those, the standard should be clear, complete, correct, and then move on. Second, you have finish-driven cards. These are cards like chrome, refractors, prism, optic, foil board, numbered parallels, those shiny inserts, wildcard one of ones, anything where the visual finish is part of the appeal. For those, the image should show why the card is interesting. Even if the card is cheap, the finish matters because the finish is part of the product. That's why I still don't love scanning Chrome cards. The scanner may technically show the card, but it often doesn't represent the card itself. Third, you have condition-sensitive cards. Vintage, black borders, foil edges, surface-sensitive modern cards, cards with known flaws, or cards where condition is part of the buying decision. For those, better imaging can prevent disputes later. If there's a corner issue, a print line, surface scratch, crease, or an edge problem, the buyer should not feel surprised when the card arrives. So the practical answer is not use perfect images on everything. It's more in the way of match the imaging effort to the reason the buyer wants the card. Now, let's talk about what sloppy images communicate to a buyer. Because this is where I push back against the idea that buyers always know what they're getting. Yes, they know what the card is, but they may not know what kind of seller you are. A crooked image does not automatically mean the seller is bad. A cut-off scan doesn't automatically mean the card will be packed poorly. A flat chrome image doesn't automatically mean the seller is careless. But buyers make quick judgments. And if a listing looks careless, some buyers will assume the operation is also careless. I get it, that may not be fair, but it does happen. The image can influence how the buyer feels about condition accuracy, shipping quality, inventory control, order pulling, professionalism, and whether the seller will handle a problem correctly should one come up. And that matters more when there are multiple copies available. If you're the only seller with the card, maybe the buyer tolerates a bad image. But if you're one of many sellers, presentation can be the tiebreaker. Bad images also create uncertainty. A blurry corner might make the buyer wonder if the card is damaged. A harsh glare might hide a surface issue. A cropped edge might make the buyer wonder what's being hidden. A scanner that kills the chrome finish might make a refractor look like a dull base card. Again, the buyer may not complain. They may just keep scrolling. So while I agree that low-end buyers are not demanding perfection, I also don't agree that sloppy images are harmless. They may not kill every sale, but they create unnecessary doubt. Now we have to bring the conversation back to time. Because quality standards are easy to defend in theory. The harder question is whether they survive the math. Let's say you add just 20 extra seconds per card trying to improve the image. That doesn't sound like much. But across 500 cards, that's almost 3 extra hours. Across 1,000 cards, it's more than 5.5 hours. And across 5,000 cards, well, that's nearly 28 hours. That's real labor. And in low-end card selling, labor is often the biggest hidden cost. That's where the haystack one and the goat pen idea makes sense to me. The point of investing in better equipment shouldn't be to spend more time on each image. The point should be to reduce the time needed to get an acceptable image. The system should make the standard easier to hit, and that's the key. A good imaging setup should create fewer retakes, less adjustment, better consistency, less decision fatigue, faster listing flow, and more trust at the same or lower time cost. If the equipment makes every card take longer, then it's not solving the production problem. If the equipment allows one and done imaging at a higher baseline quality, then it's doing its job. That's how I would evaluate it. Not by asking, does this make the image perfect? But by asking, does this make the acceptable image faster? So, what should the actual retake rule be? Here's where I would land on that. Retake the image if the card is cut off. That's basic. It's part of the card is missing, especially an edge or a corner, the buyer can't fully evaluate it. Retake if the image is blurry. Blurry image isn't just unattractive, it reduces trust. Retake if the card is badly tilted. Look, a slight angle is fine, but if the card looks like it was just tossed onto the scanner bed or photographed in a rush, that starts to look pretty careless. Retake if glare hides important details, especially the player name, serial number, card number, autograph, surface issue, or a visible defect. Retake if the image misrepresents the finish. Now, this applies more to chrome, refractors, those prisms and optics, foil board, and other finish-driven cards. Retake if the wrong card or wrong variation could be confused. That's not an image quality issue, that's an accuracy issue. But don't retake just because the border spacing is slightly uneven. And don't retake it just because the shine could be a little bit better. You don't need to retake it just because the card is off by a few degrees. And you don't need to retake it just because the image is good, but not ideal. That's the standard I need to remind myself of. Question's not, would I frame this image? The question is, would I trust this seller? And if the answer is yes, simply move on. Now, this is where the scanner debate comes in. Scanners are very efficient. They're consistent, fast. They can keep the card flat, and they can work well for paper stock cards, vintage, and basic base cards. So I don't think scanners are bad. I use them regularly. In fact, for certain cards, scanning may be the better production choice. But chrome and refractors are different to me. The problem with scanning chrome is that the scanner often captures the object, but not the effect. It shows the card, but it may not show the reason the card is appealing. A refractor that looks electric in hand can look dead on a scan. A chrome card can look flat. A foil board card can lose depth. That shiny parallel can look like a basic version. And that matters. Not always because the card is expensive, but because the finish is part of the identity of the card. So my scanner rule would be use scanning where accuracy and speed are better than visual presentation. Use photography where finish, shine, or surface representation matters. That means 1993 Fleer Barry Sanders can probably be scanned without much harm. But a chrome refractor, even a cheap one, may deserve a photo. Again, it's not about the price alone. It's about what the buyer needs to see. Our topic today matters because imaging is one of the first things a buyer sees. Before they see your packaging, before they understand your shipping speed, your customer service, or your inventory accuracy, they see the listing. The image then is part of your brand. For some sellers, the brand is speed and volume, and that can work. If the buyer knows the seller is cheap, fast, and has inventory, maybe they tolerate rougher images. For other sellers, the brand is trust and consistency, and that can also work. For us here at JC3 Cards and Collectibles, I think the best lane is professional enough to trust, efficient enough to scale, not so perfectionist that production gets choked. That middle lane is important because I do think buyers notice presentation. But I also think sellers can overestimate how much buyers' reward presentation on low-end inventory. A beautiful image on a $1.99 card does not automatically make it a $4.99 card. A perfect photo doesn't fix an overpriced listing. A clean image doesn't overcome weak demand. So image quality is not a magic sales lever. However, it is a trust lever, and that's different. And trust matters more over time than on any single listing. So, are we wasting time getting sub $10 images just right? Well, in short, my answer is sometimes yes. If we're retaking cheap base cards because the border is not perfect, we're probably wasting time. If we're spending extra time trying to make sure every low-end card looks like a premium listing, then we're probably hurting production. But are we wasting time by caring about image quality? Emphatically, no. That part still matters. A clean image tells the buyer the operation is organized. A clear image reduces doubt. A good image helps the card feel accurately represented. And with chrome, refractors, foil, and condition-sensitive cards, the image can absolutely matter. The standard should not be perfection. The standard should be trust. That's the phrase I keep coming back to. Make every card look trustworthy and make special cards look special. For commodity cards, clear, complete, correct, and move on. For finish-driven cards, show the finish. For condition-sensitive cards, show the condition clearly. For everything else, don't let perfection become the enemy of listed. And that's the production lesson today. Image quality matters. Image perfection usually does not. And in low-end card selling, the best process is the one that creates buyer trust without killing your hourly rate. Well, that wraps up this week's episode of my so-called card life. If you enjoyed the discussion, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment with your own imaging standard. Do you scan everything? Do you photo everything? Do you treat chrome differently? And do you think buyers care about clean images on low-end cards? Or is this one of those things sellers worry about more than buyers do? I'd love to hear where other sellers draw the line between quality control and overproduction. And if you're buying cards, remember to check out JC3 Cards and Collectibles on eBay, Collects, and whatnot. We've got thousands of low-end singles, sports and non-sport inventory, and our Lucky 7 promotion on eBay that gives you 40% off when you buy 7 or more eligible cards. Thanks for listening, everyone. I hope you too continue to build your own so-called card life.